Coming to you from an undisclosed location somewhere in the heart, the windswept plains, actually, of Oklahoma. I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli. This is Acceleration Radio, right here on KGRA and also on my YouTube channel, L.A. Marzulli. Hey folks, very special guest tonight, Mary Joyce. She's been on the show before. Here we go. And this is it. And she is the author of this. And you can see her right on the screen behind me. Bigfoot Beyond the Footprints. Look, I've been studying Bigfoot for years. A friend of mine, Ron Moorhead, has written 2 books on it, Sierra Sounds and Quantum Bigfoot. And we had Ron here a while ago. I've seen, not tracks, well, I've seen pictures of tracks, of course. And I've also seen areas where a 5-inch tree was just twisted and over the trail, which is a warning sign not to come here. But I read Mary's book, and I was just taken aback because it's moving me out of my comfort zone here. I got to be honest with you. So first of all, thanks for coming on the record, and tell us just how you got into this whole Bigfoot thing.
Well, you know that we started the website because of UFOs. There were so many of them over the mountains around here. That's how it started. And then we began to find out there's Bigfoot in the same areas that we're seeing the UFOs. And actually, the one that really got me hooked was a woman who connected me through a hairdresser. And the lady was real reluctant to talk at first and kind of scared. And it took several months before she would, let us get on the property and see the evidence. And she had plenty of evidence.
And that was sort of a nexus of your exploration into the world of Bigfoot?
That's what really got me going on it. Now, we've had a lot of things. We've seen footprints. I've seen footprints. It's not just other people's photos. And so when you see them for yourself, you begin to, take it more seriously.
Well, what amazes me about this, Ron Moorhead did his Sierra Sounds, and he, like you, and like the people that you've interviewed in the book, a lot of encounters. It's not just a black and white phenomenon. It seems to be very complex. And after reading your accounts here, it's causing me to sort of rethink my own opinion of these creatures. First of all, let's just talk about what you think they may be. I mean, do you think that they're some sort of like an offshoot of human beings, like Neanderthal or Denisovan, or something else entirely different? What are your thoughts there?
The research that was initially done by Melba Ketchum and then supported by many other people at a later point, because initially she was really, really lambasted for her research.
I remember.
Basically, they found that Bigfoot has human DNA on the mother's side and some unknown DNA on the paternal side. And they can't connect it with anything that they know. So it's a bit of a mystery. It's obviously a hybrid, a human hybrid with something else.
Now, I think you're somewhat familiar.
Also, I don't think they're all the same, because the Bigfoot down in Florida are much smaller. Generally, the ones out west are the biggest. There's some reported with 5 toes like we have, some with 6, some with 4. So I don't think they all have the same paternal input into their DNA.
Now, one of the things that, all throughout the book, as you're talking with people and interfacing with people, interviewing with people, many of these people that you're interviewing have had very close encounters with these entities, with these creatures, and ongoing. In other words, there's just not one encounter like we often hear. Their encounters have gone on for weeks, months, years in some cases. And there seems to be, and this is why I was taken aback, these people that have encounters with these creatures think that they're benign and friendly, and they communicate telepathically. But, that's what kind of upset me a bit, if I can use that word, because it kind of blew me out of my comfort zone, because I was labeling all these entities as Nephilim. That's what I thought they were. And talking to Ron Moorhead for years, I've known Ron since 2013, he also came to the conclusion that these entities were modern-day Nephilim, or some sort of interdimensional being which pops in, pops out, but are Nephilim. And of course, Melba Ketchum's DNA result kind of bolsters that the fact that it's they don't know what the nuclear DNA is, a non-primate, non-human, unknown DNA. So that's in my wheelhouse. But reading the encounters with the people, they grew. There was like an attachment there. I mean, there was communication. They realized that these beings were intelligent. They were friendly. They had a family setting. Tell us about some of that.
Well, the Bigfoot will not open up with just anybody. And what I found that seems to be true up to this point anyhow, is that anybody who is relating to them on a regular basis are very gentle, kind-spirited people who live closer to nature. One of the men, he had to retire from I don't know, he was a sheriff down in Florida before he had to retire for health reasons. And he did gardening, and he did organic gardening. And so he lived out in the woods, at the base of a mountain. So there was that commonality. Another woman who's relating to them, she raises herbs in the forest. I don't know, that seems to be a common theme. One woman who is actually known beyond the United States is a very humble woman. Her name is Robin McRae. I tell 3 of her stories in the book. And she is just sort of like everybody's mama. And she just is kind of big and lovable, and she's known the Bigfoot since she was a child. So if you're going to be the skeptic and the hard-nosed scientist, they're probably not as likely to open up with you. That's the common fact.
So I want to get into some of these stories. And, some of the pictures in here are just incredible. You show actual footprints, dwellings, nests, whatever. But let's talk about this one woman, Robin McRae, on page 7. And she talks about, interfacing with a very large, 9.5 to 10 foot Bigfoot female. And then this Bigfoot had a child, had a baby. Tell us about that.
Well, that was the first time that had ever happened. And again, she's the one who's seen Bigfoot, interacted with them practically all of her life. But it was very unusual for a mother and a baby to actually make their appearance. And they apparently wanted her to see them or see the baby. And it was kind of a cute story because the little guy was about 2.5 feet tall, which I did a great show carrying human infants to Bigfoot infants, and it was about the size of a newborn. And the mother would set it down, and it would climb like 2 feet up a tree and climb down. Go to the next tree, climb up, climb down. And when it got too far away, the mother went and got it and brought it back. And I don't know, just kind of a playful interlude. The woman was able to determine the height because she noticed how tall the Bigfoot was compared to a tree in the background. So she went back later and actually measured the height. And if I remember right, it's like 9.5 feet.
That's a really big. Anything that big is I don't want to meet something like that in the woods. I mean, that would be somewhat terrifying.
Now,
go ahead.
I don't think anybody would get that experience off the bat. She was broken into it step by step. So the mama didn't appear right away.
Now, did she communicate with the mother telepathically or what?
Yeah, she's able to do that, and we call it telepathy. But in the Bigfoot crowd, they call it mind speak. It's the same thing.
Okay.
And okay.
So with this mind speak, I mean, you see, when I get into that for me, that starts to put things into the realm of the supernatural, and that's what I find disturbing about this, because that's.
Well, I don't think I don't know. I don't think of it as supernatural.
Okay.
I think of it as a latent ability that humans have.
Okay.
And we've locked ourselves into our computers and our cell phones, and we've like turned off this natural instinct that we have. Now, people who get along well with animals, it doesn't matter what kind they are. There's horse whisperers and people who can communicate with the elephants. We have that ability, but most of us have killed it with all our technology.
And I would concur with that. So many of us go from air-conditioned cubicle to air-conditioned car to cell phone to computer. And, when was the last time the audience that's watching this went out and just sat on the ground and were, in a wooded area and just listened to the sounds? I mean, there's people that do that, but most of us never do that or haven't done it in years. So there's a disconnect, from nature. I know Native Americans talk about this, man apart from nature. I forget the exact quote, but it's something like man apart from nature grows cold and disease, sick. And I would agree with that. I've never.
And, you'll notice that, especially young people with their cell phones, they lose the ability to read all the body signs that you normally would pick up with your eyes. And so if you lose that, what else are you losing? It's a whole different realm of communication, and we're suffocating it.
It's amazing. So these entities are communicating telepathically or through mind speak. I remember, I'll just tell you a story that was told to me by another researcher. There's still this noise in the background. It's like white noise. I'm not sure where it's from, but we'll continue. This was told to me by another researcher that this woman, like your friend in the book, was very familiar with these entities, and there was communication. And she knew where they were, and they allowed her to come in to their presence. And so she would go. And these two firemen wanted to see the Bigfoot. And they were, these big guys, and they were goofing around, and they were, I think they might have been armed, I don't know. But they go up on the mountain, and all of a sudden, they didn't see it, but they encountered it. They came in close proximity, and she told me that they were hit with something so visceral that these two grown men, big burly fire guys, right, ran off that mountain crying like school kids in a playground. They were so, terrified at what had come at them. And then she told me that time when she took, and the other person who was with her, they went into this place where they were, and she said, and the guy backed her up on it. It's like walking through molasses. Everything, time seemed to stop, and they finally got through that, and then they interacted with the creatures for a while, and then came out. Have you ever heard a story like that, or is that has a ring of familiarity?
I have not. The people that I've interviewed have really encountered these Bigfoot like you would become friends with the monkey in the jungle. It's been a very real experience. There's one story that I include in there that's actually from somebody else's research. But there's one Bigfoot who had become friends with a human. When he was dying, he was very, very upset, and he told the woman that the military had lured him and two other Bigfoot as if they were friends into someplace. And then they had kind of knocked him out and implanted something, and he was just outraged that the trust that they had with those particular military people was, taken advantage of. And he was just livid. Just livid.
There's another story. This Raman McRae's information. Once again, a couple of Shetland ponies back there, and she's tying them up, and then she comes back, and everything's tied in other places and on top of trees. I mean, these entities are just like goofing around.
I think that's a great story. She had a post that wouldn't stay in the fence, and she finally had a post around it just to keep it, close to home.
So, I remember Ron Moorhead, Mary, telling me that, and he came on the record and told us this, and it was a first. And in fact, he had never told it to anybody else. And the reason why he had never told it to anyone else, because he was afraid people wouldn't believe him, because what he had seen was absolutely unbelievable. So he's up in the high Sierras, and you may have heard the story before, but I know a lot of our listeners haven't. And the bottom line is he came on a set of tracks, and that's 18 inches exactly. So you add another 3, and you get 28 inches here. He found a print that was like 26 inches in length, and the stride between the footprints, I don't know, 10 feet, 12 feet, whatever it was unbelievable. And they just went on for a period of time, and then they just vanished. So what's your, I'm looking at the book, and there's a lot of really cool footprints in here and pictures of them, but what's one of the larger ones that you've seen?
We haven't seen anything close to that. Most of them are in the 16, 18-inch size.
Which is still big.
Biggest, it's still big.
Yeah.
It's still big. Yeah.
But elaborate on that, if you can.
That's just the most common size that we've seen around here.
Now,
I've seen prints. I've taken photos of them, so I've seen them when they're still fresh in mud. And they're the ones I've gotten photos of are on very steep slopes. Human beings would have a real hard time, getting up the slopes that they do with these.
Now, when the footprints appear, do they just appear out of nowhere and then vanish, or have you followed the trail to its end? Tell me about that.
There is a cave. In fact, I've added this to the website real recently. So if somebody wants to see the cave, they can. There is a steep mountain ridge, and it goes almost vertical. And way up above the basic tree line, there is a cave. And you have to be just in the right position to get it. Well, there's a regular path that we've discovered that comes from that cave, crosses a single lane road, and then goes down to where a pond is and where an apple tree is. And we set up one of our food experiments near this path because it was a regular trail that they took, just like any other animals. They had, just like you and I, we have regular paths that we take.
Right.
And
what happened?
I don't know what to tell you. We repeatedly have seen footprints in the same area. We had one woman who was driving that road, and she saw one of the creatures leap across the road. And then we've had people smell the odor that's associated with the Bigfoot. So we've seen the footprints, we've smelled the odor. A few people have actually seen it. I don't know what else to tell you about that.
Ron Moorhead backs you up on this, and my brief encounter, seeing the one tree twisted and across the trail. And then there were stacks of rocks. Further up the trail, someone had stacked rocks. It was all very, very deliberate. They were almost like warning signs, like, don't come up here. And we were in this forest where it was like time stopped. It was up in New Hampshire area because we were filming up at America Stonehenge, and we were looking at other dolmens in the area. And so we're up there, trying to find this one dolmen, and we went into a national park. Where's David Pilates when you need him? And it was really spooky because we didn't really hear any birds, or it was like everything was really quiet and really still. And we're wandering around in this forest for like 3 hours, literally. And we can't find this dolmen. We're looking at maps, and we just can't find it. And we're going up this one trail, and I'm in the lead. My wife's with me, and Fritz Zimmerman and our camera lady. And we're walking up the thing, and Jessica's filming everything. And all of a sudden, there's this tree, and it's across the road like this. So the tree's like this, and someone has bent the tree. Here's the stump. Boom. Someone's bent the tree, but they've twisted it. And it's like a 4 or 5 inch tree, sapling, and it's twisted. And and I know that human beings can't do that. And I stopped everybody. We have it all on film, and just said, that is a sign of Bigfoot. We are in a Bigfoot territory. And it was lowland, lots of swamp, didn't see any footprints, but it didn't smell anything, didn't hear anything. But it was strange. It was very alarming. and it was like, don't come up here. So when you tell us about some of the people's encounters that have seen the same, trees that are twisted like that.
One of the gals that I write about is the one that actually raises herbs in the forest. She lives in forest, her whole property is forest, and it's in the mountains. And so she one day was out checking the things she was growing, and the very next day she went out there, and one of the tent structures that the Bigfoot are also known for had appeared overnight, and then above the tent structure were I don't want to call them saplings. They were a little bit thicker than that. But saplings were then bent in an arch over this tent. It all appeared overnight. And she had a dream about the Bigfoot that night. And she's had dreams a couple of times. The very first time that it happened, she just had a dream about a Bigfoot, and it had never been a part of her life ever. And she and her two kids and her husband went for a hike the next day in the Joyce Forest, again here in North Carolina. And they were going across the creek, and there was a big Bigfoot. So it was like they were gently trying to introduce themselves to her. Then we had hikers, and they were hikers who had followed a lot of things about Bigfoot. They were very much in wanting to make connection. And they went out and got quiet way out in a remote area. And the Bigfoot, you could hear them around where they were. And they were told telepathically that they didn't want to appear physically, especially the first time, because they didn't want to scare the people. Wow. Because they know that even if you believe in Bigfoot, if you suddenly encounter such a huge creature, it can be terrifying. And I would shake my shoes if one just suddenly came through the door here.
What do you think? Let's go back to the UFO thing for a second before we move on to some of the other stories. What do you think the connection is between UFOs and Bigfoot? Do you think? Tell me what you think. What's the connection there?
I cannot give you an absolute answer on that. After hearing the story about the Bigfoot who the military took over and put the implant in him, some of those that come out of the UFOs, which may be man-made, are the ones that seem to be the most associated with the UFOs. I think the vast majority of Bigfoot pretty much just live remotely, and they try to stay away from humans. And, as the Indians say, they're just another clan of people who they don't want to be bothered by human beings. That, to me, is more common than what we see with the UFOs, but there certainly are stories about those. And at this point, I would not make an absolute conclusion about that. The Bigfoot have been around forever, long before we ever knew about UFOs. I mean,
that's what I mean. Reading your book, it's not this black and white. It seems to be very complex, and I'm left scratching my head. I want to, give a copy of the book to Ron Moorhead and get you guys talking, because you need to talk shop with each other.
Well, what happens is we're just human. We want to put everything into a box or a book that we can understand. And when some things don't fit in the box, we want to break off the leg and make it fit, or we want to break off this and make it fit. And sometimes whatever it is too big for the box. And our box is limited, of what we can possibly learn.
There was Go ahead.
I gave you an analogy once on the phone that we're like potted plants, and we get real comfortable with our way of thinking or our religion or, our health ideas, and we think that's the way it is. Well, sometimes each one of us is supposed to grow, and sometimes we grow and we outgrow our pot. And if you don't, change pots or get out of the pot, so to speak, your roots get all tangled and you can't grow anymore. So I caution everybody not to make absolutes about most things.
Interesting. I would respectfully disagree with you on some of that, but that we can take that up over a good cup of coffee sometime. There's a really interesting story in the book, and it's you're telling this guy from the Civil War. It's a battlefield. It's a horrible skirmish, whatever battle, and this man is wounded, and he thinks he's going to die, and something extraordinary happens to him, and he writes the account. Tell us about that.
I stumbled on that story on YouTube, and it was just a very nicely read letter from the Civil War. And I had to do a lot of work, actually, to track down the source. And it was written by a Civil War soldier, and it was given as like a legacy to his family. The man who posted it on YouTube, he was a friend of this man who worked for a college and was an author and was a researcher, and he didn't want his name associated with this because he didn't want his reputation shot. But the man said he saw the original letter. The pages were the old paper. It was the old script. He said everything, seemed very, very legit. And it's the story of this man, and he was really bad. He would have died if the Bigfoot hadn't come along. The term Bigfoot or Sasquatch didn't exist during the Civil War. He just referred to them as the forest people. And they nursed for some time and brought him into a cave. And a lot of the time he was just out of it. And they would take care of him and feed him. And when he got better, he used the roots that were hanging from the sick.
Wait, say that again because you just cut off. When he got better, he used the roots. Pick it up from there.
Okay, the roots were coming down from the top of this cave that they were in, and he used the roots to hold on to so that he could start to walk again. But they brought him, he had to eat raw food, they brought raw meat, and they brought him water, and they were able, he when he first started to eat, he was so hungry that he ate too much and he made himself sick, and the Bigfoot, and this was a male, used his hand to show him he needed to slow down. So they were able to communicate in a type of sign language. And he was very grateful to them. And when he got well enough, they took him out into the forest and showed him where the path was so he could get back to where his people were.
Amazing.
It's a much better story than I just put in summary. It fit in very well.
I found that part really fascinating. But we're at the bottom of the hour, Mary Joyce. I got to take a little break here. But before I do, folks, I want to talk to you about Jingos. www.buyjingos.com. Buyjingos.com. This stuff really works. We were just at the Unseat Scroll conference in San Antonio. And we had people come up to us. And I should have recorded it, but I didn't, even on the cell phone. And people were telling us, we had a bottle of Jingos, of course, and we were giving out pamphlets and telling people how to get it. And we had many people that came up to us and telling us, oh, I buy Jingos by the gallon. I love it. This stuff's amazing. I wouldn't be, caught without it. It's saved shirts and carpets and stains and everything else. Folks, www.buyjingos.com. This stuff does work. Go to the website, purchase it, and we just want to thank our sponsors because Jeff and the guys do a great job with this, and they keep us on the air. We'll be back in a couple of minutes, folks. You're listening to Acceleration Radio. I'm your intrepid host, L.A. Marzulli, right here on KGRA.
By Jingos, it's amazingly fresh and clean out here in beautiful New Zealand. G'day America, I'm Tarby, and I want to tell you about my new ultimate stain and odour remover, Jingos. My Jingos gunk gobblers will tackle stubborn organic stains and eliminate nasty stinking odours at the same time. Jingos effectively removes those little accidents like wine, coffee, dirt, blood, grass, even pet stains, and odours like fish, garlic, even skunk. Jingos is environmentally friendly, safe for use on fabrics, carpet, upholstery, and it works great as a laundry pre-soak on the worst pet or people accidents. Come on, America, what are you waiting for? Just go online and order your Jingos for $12.95 and get a 4-ounce travel pack free. Crikey, pay $19.95 and I'll double your order. That's 2 large Jingos and 2 travel packs for just $19.95. Blasted seagulls, where's my Jingos?
And folks, we're back. Thanks for keeping it right here on Acceleration Radio on KGRA. And of course on the internet at L.A. Marzulli on our YouTube channel. Before I bring Mary back on and start talking about Bigfoot, I just want to say that we are being censored not only on YouTube, but on Facebook and on Twitter and on Google. So it's your help and getting the word out is always good. They fudge the numbers and tell us that the content is not suitable for most advertisers. So we don't monetize anymore. That's why we have Jingos. But, Mary, when we were, I blogged about this next one, which I'm going to throw you, and the title is "Could Lost Boys Bear Have Been a Bigfoot?" I remember reading this. It was all on the news that this kid. Let me just see how many days. Okay, 3 days and 2 nights, and this kid is how old? He's like 4 or 5 or something, or even less.
No, it's like no, he's less than that, like 2, 3.
Okay.
3.
Yes.
3.
This goes off the rails, okay, for me. And this is exactly the type of stuff that David Paulides is writing about in his books, and when I read this, when it was coming across the wires and everybody, the kid was finally found. He's found in a thicket, and it was really cold, and the kid goes, "Oh, the bear took care of me." Now remember, the kid, if he's 2 or 3, has nothing in his grid about Bigfoot. More than likely never heard anything about it. But he has heard about a bear. And so he's just going, "Whoa, it's a bear." What are your thoughts? I know what my thoughts are on this.
Well, I did a couple of things. One, I got information from a bear expert out in the West, and he said a bear would never behave that way. It would never, they've never been known to save or to help people. So that's number one. Number two, this was in the wintertime. It was hibernation time.
Right.
So what is going to come out and spend 2 or 3 days with a little boy caught in the briars? Then I did more research referring to the Bepro site, and there have been Bigfoot sightings in that area of eastern North Carolina. So that supports it again that it probably was a Bigfoot. And Bigfoot has been known for saving people.
Exactly. I mean, what I find interesting about this, the kid goes missing. It's in January. It's really cold. He's got nothing to eat, and then he's found, and he's okay. And we hear that story repeated in David Paulides' work. And, Paulides, for the most part, doesn't give his opinion as to what's happening or who's doing it, but he sort of alludes that he believes it's Bigfoot. And he's even stated that thousands of people go missing in our parks and every year, and they're never found, not a trace. So I mean, it seems like with everything, there's good stuff and there's bad stuff going on with this. There seems to be really gentle creatures that want to interact, like the Bigfoot clan, because it was a clan that saved the Civil War guy, who called the forest people. There's no word for Bigfoot. Native Americans have known about them for hundreds and hundreds of years and honor them. I mean, I heard a story recently about one medicine man who was out in an area, and literally, because of what he was doing, a mountain lion came up and just sat next to him. I mean, out of the woods. Just came up, sat next to him. So, I mean, Native American people, and people like this are really in tune with nature in the way that you are, or I'm not either. So it's sort of interesting. But I want to get back to this kid because
before I forget, I did meet Paulides real recently. He spoke at the exhibition Bigfoot Museum in North Georgia. And he went out of his way to say that he had never, ever said that Bigfoot was responsible for these disappearances.
Okay.
So he went out of his way to say that. So right. I think we have to back off on that idea.
Okay. Well, I stand corrected then. Thank you. I just know that he's not sure what it is. I came away with the impression that he was kind of alluding to that. But if he's been that adamant about it just recently, I'm going to go with what is the more recent verbiage from Paulides. But let me ask you something. People go missing in these places, but then this little child goes missing, and the child is found, and he was taken care of by a very large bear, and we both know it wasn't a bear. So, I mean, again, there seems to be something else going on. It's complex here. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I've heard enough stories about them being gentle and friendly, so I'm not one that's going to jump right in and say they're bad. Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be bad. It's usually the violence is usually directed toward hunters or people with guns or people that are actually threatening them or their family. Other than that, they try to scare people away. They try to avoid people. But that's what I have seen up to this point.
What do you think the knocking sound? We've all heard the story. Many of us have heard the story that are into this, where you'll be walking in the woods and all of a sudden you'll hear bird calls that don't really sound like bird calls. They're close. Then, of course, you'll hear a knocking on the side of a tree. Stones will be thrown, and they're large stones, but they always miss. It seems like, they're either really lousy shots or they're just trying to, stay out of here. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they're trying to scare you away. That's what I hear over and over again. So that would be my conclusion. Otherwise, they could come down and wring your neck if they want.
Absolutely. I mean, a 9-footer, give me a break. You don't stand a chance. Don't stand a chance.
Right. They could up on you. They could squish you. I mean, clearly they didn't intend to do that.
What about the Bigfoot in the woman's house that broke into it and just started destroying everything? Or not destroying, but looking at things and messing things up. What do you think that's about?
Well, that's a story that's probably the most complicated story that we have regarding Bigfoot.
Okay.
And the woman, we call her Samantha, and she had always experienced this feeling of, she was being watched, but she never saw anything. She lived in a bowl-shaped valley between the mountain ridges, and they had 2 houses, a barn, and a pond there. Well, the pond needed to be fixed, so somebody was out there with a jackhammer, and they went through into bedrock. And suddenly all the water is draining out of the pond. And after that, they started having trouble with the Bigfoot. In hindsight, they figured out that they must have flooded the cave that the Bigfoot were living in, and they weren't happy. So for a while, they were having their own vehicles, their own houses broken into. And it wasn't until we were out on the porch with this woman, and she said out loud that she never intended to flood their home, that it was not intended. She had taken some of their rocks that they had done etches on and stuff, and she returned those. And after that, all the trouble stopped. And in front of her front door, there was a piece of, kind of looked like burlap. It was kind of shaped like a basket. There were like 3 old coins and something else.
Well, folks, as you can see on the screen behind me, Mary Joyce just got the modem completely shut down. She can no longer get on the internet. She's been having trouble. Her computers were hacked. Maybe it's because of this book, which she has just published. And you can pick this up if you want to. It is on Amazon. You can take a look at it right here. It is on Amazon. And you can also go to the website, which is www.skyships. That's apostrophe S, or just S, I'm sorry. Skyships, plural. I meant to say plural. Skyshipsovercashiers.com. www.skyshipsovercashiers.com. And you can just type in Mary Joyce Bigfoot, and I'm sure this will come up. Look, this is where I'm at with all this. After reading her book, and I would challenge you out there to get the book and read it, and get Ron Moorhead's book. And, it's complex. Maybe there's, what are they then? I mean, if they're not Nephilim, then what are they? And I don't have an answer for that. If any of you are watching out there and you have ideas, please shoot me an email at la@lamarzulli.net, la@lamarzulli.net. I will be at the Prophecy Watchers Conference this Friday in Norman. I'm speaking at 7:30 on Friday evening. I'll also be doing a luncheon with Gary Stearman, sort of like there's that tail, it's Mr. Wrinkles. Hi, Rinks. So I'll be there all on Friday. I catch an early plane out on here on Saturday morning, and I'll be speaking at Hear the Watchman Conference in Irvine, California. Here's the deal. You can get live streaming by going to either site, prophecywatchers.com or hearthewatchman.com, and you can sign up, and you don't even have to leave. You don't have to travel anywhere or book a hotel room. You can watch it in the privacy of your own home. So I will be in both of those places, and I'm looking forward to that. We're going to take some time off, right after the last conference. We've been really going full tilt boogie here. I also want to tell you that this book here is available on the website, and at our conferences, it sells out almost immediately. It's On the Trail of the Nephilim, over 600 pages, over 350 full-color photos. I'll just show you an example. That's myself and Bob Shelley and Chief Joseph Riverwind holding what we call the Nephilim lance. You can get that by going to lamarzulli.net, lamarzulli.net. You can avail yourself of that. Episode 4 will be on DNA's On the Trail of the Nephilim. Episode 3 is now out. Secrets of the Supernatural, Voices from the Other Side. That's what I will be talking about at both of these conferences. I'll also be giving a UFO update, and I might as well just talk about that briefly now. That I spoke about UFOs at the Unseen Scroll conference on last Friday. I spoke in the morning, and it was a good crowd for a Friday, and it was just talking about that the whole UFO phenomena is not going away. It's real, burgeoning, and not going away. And the fact that we're on the first and second rung of the disclosure ladder has been breached, as it were. The first being Commander David Fravor in December of 2017, stating that he saw and engaged a tic-tac-shaped UFO on the Pacific Ocean outside San Diego. They've been tracking this thing for weeks. He made visual contact with it. He tried to go and get closer to it. When he did that, the thing darted away like a bullet out of a gun. His words, not mine. And when Tucker Carlson pressed him, what do you think this was? Commander Fravor said, whatever this was not of this world. That's the first rung of a disclosure ladder. The second rung came this year when Luis Elizondo, and by the way, between 2017 and December and a few months ago with Luis Elizondo, Tucker has had a steady stream of people. Nick Pope, for instance, has been on several times, as have others. Leslie Keene has also been on talking about the whole UFO phenomenon. So recently, about 3 or 4 months ago, we had Luis Elizondo, who was part of ATIP, which their job was to ascertain whether these unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomena posed any type of threat to the United States or even other countries. And Elizondo states on the record, that in his opinion, the United States government had in its possession wreckage from a UFO. Now, that's mind-blowing. Well, I give all that. That's the second rung of a disclosure. I tell people about that, warn people about the coming great deception. And then Friday night, I'm listening to, I think it was Bill Salas, I'm not sure who it was, but I'm listening to one of the speakers. My phone begins, I have it on silent, it starts to vibrate. So I just kind of quietly take it out and look at it. It's Gary Stearman. And I say, well, I better take this call because Gary knows where I am and he wouldn't be calling unless it was important. So I run out of the room and I go, Gary, what's going on? And he goes, Tucker Carlson is having Luis Elizondo again in 2 minutes. He's at the break. Go up and watch it. So I got there, I got to the elevator, went up to the 24th floor, ran down the hallway, fumbled with the TV remote, got Fox News on just in time. I had about 20 seconds, 30 seconds left, and all of a sudden Luis Elizondo comes on. And again, with Tucker Carlson, he's telling Tucker on national news, this isn't George Norian Coast to Coast, this is Fox News, prime time, Tucker Carlson. And he looks right at the camera and he says, Tucker, we have in our possession materials, some from the government, some from private sources, which has provenance. In other words, they know the chain of evidence, where it came from. Here's the source, who handled it. Now it's in my hands. That's how that works. And they know, and they're very excited about it, and they're testing it. And it's just like, you've got to be kidding me. So here we are talking about this, trying to warn the church that this UFO phenomenon is not going away. It's extremely real, and we need to start addressing it. So I just found it very serendipitous that it happened on a Friday. And, of course, that next morning, I showed the clip. I spoke 4 times that weekend. I showed the clip at the luncheon and in every other presentation that I did. I made sure that the people knew that this is being reinforced. So we are in uncharted waters, folks. We really are. And it's time to understand our priority before a mile-wide craft just appears in the sky and totally blows everybody out of the water. And the entire planet just goes shift like that, a paradigm shift, a global paradigm shift, and they will believe the lie. I believe that these entities are interdimensional. I believe that their intentions are incredibly nefarious. I believe that the breeding program that they've been working on for years has reached its fruition. And as Dr. David Jacobs would write, they are now walking amongst us. So look, we are in uncharted waters here. I'll be speaking about all of this in both presentations at the Hear the Watchman Conference in California on Saturday. But before that, Friday at 7:30 at the Prophecy Watchers Conference, Norman, Oklahoma, www.prophecywatchers.com. You can see the schedule. You can sign up for live streaming. Better yet, if you're near there, come in. It's always great to meet the people. That's what's going on, folks, and I'm excited about both conferences, and it's going to be great to see the folks. That's all the time I have for it. Thanks for listening to Acceleration Radio, and, of course, watching Acceleration Radio on our YouTube channel. Hit that little subscribe button. Thank you all for your patronage. We really appreciate it. Remember, we'll see you on the air or in the air. Thanks for watching.
The story of the reptile, called the Prince of the Power of the Air,
because there's real demonic power and forces behind these locations.
I heard a commotion and I turned around and...
there's no question there's a spiritual implication.
It was built upon monolithic stones, which so it was originally a Nephilim stronghold.
So what we're seeing that little stick figure.
The table was actually levitating by itself.
Sites are Nephilim architecture, have anything to do with fallen angels, and of course that means demonic activity.
And something hits me right on my belt, knocks the breath out of me.